The rise and transformation of Rome from republic to empire was shaped by a succession of extraordinary leaders, civil conflicts, and sweeping reforms that redefined the ancient Mediterranean world. At the center of this transition stood Julius Caesar, a brilliant general and political strategist whose military triumphs in Gaul, defiance of the Senate, and victory over Pompey brought him unmatched power. His declaration as dictator in perpetuity and ambitious reforms, including the Julian calendar, reshaped the state, but also stoked fears of tyranny. These tensions culminated in his assassination in 44 BCE, an act meant to restore the Republic, but which instead plunged Rome into further civil war. From the chaos emerged Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, later known as Augustus, whose political acumen and military skill enabled him to defeat rivals like Mark Antony and Cleopatra. As Rome's first emperor, Augustus preserved the facade of republican institutions while consolidating supreme authority, inaugurating the Pax Romana, a two-century period of relative peace, prosperity, and expansion. Through constitutional settlements, propaganda such as the Ara Pacis, and pragmatic governance, Augustus established the Principate, securing stability after generations of upheaval. The emperors who followed, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero, expanded Rome's frontiers, undertook grand building projects, and navigated the challenges of imperial succession. Yet their reigns also revealed the fragility of centralized power. A personal ambition, court intrigue, and strained relations with the Senate destabilized the dynasty. Nero's downfall in 68 CE triggered the Year of Four Emperors, a turbulent struggle for the throne that ended with Vespasian and the Flavian dynasty. Together, these episodes illustrate how Rome's shift from republic to empire was not a single event, but a complex evolution marked by ambition, reform, propaganda, and the enduring challenge of balancing autocracy with the legacy of republican ideals. Julius Caesar was a late Republic statesman and general who waged civil war against the Roman Senate, defeating many patrician conservatives before he declared himself dictator. Gaius Julius Caesar was a Roman general, statesman, consul, and notable author of Latin prose. He played a critical role in the events that led to the demise of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. In 60 BCE, Caesar, Marcus Licinius Crassus, and Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, Pompey the Great, formed a political alliance known as the First Triumvirate that was to dominate Roman politics for several years. Caesar made the initial overtures that led to the informal alliance. An acclaimed military commander who had also served in a variety of public offices, Caesar sought election as consul in 59 BCE, along with two other candidates. The election was particularly contentious, with corruption occurring on all sides. Caesar won, as well as conservative Marcus Bibulus, but saw that he could further his political influence with Crassus and Pompey. Their attempts to amass power through populist tactics were opposed by the conservative ruling class within the Roman Senate, among them Cato the Younger and Cicero. Meanwhile, Caesar's victories in the Gallic Wars, completed by 51 BCE, extended Rome's territory to the English Channel and the Rhine River. Caesar became the first Roman general to cross both when he built a bridge across the Rhine and conducted the first invasion of Britain. These achievements granted Caesar unmatched military power and threatened to eclipse the standing of his colleague, Pompey, who had realigned himself with the Senate after the death of Crassus in 53 BCE. With the Gallic Wars concluded, the Senate ordered Caesar to step down from his military command and return to Rome. Caesar refused and marked his defiance in 49 BCE by crossing the Rubicon, shallow river in northern Italy, with a legion. In doing so, he deliberately broke the law on imperium and engaged in an open act of insurrection and treason. Civil war ensued, with Pompey representing the Roman Senate forces against Caesar, but Caesar quickly defeated Pompey in 48 BCE and dispatched Pompey's supporters in the following year. During this time, many staunch Senate conservatives, such as Cato the Younger, were either killed or committed suicide, thereby greatly decreasing the number of optimates in Rome. After assuming control of the government, upon the defeat of his enemies in 45 BCE, Caesar began a program of social and governmental reforms that included the creation of the Julian calendar. He centralized the bureaucracy of the Republic and eventually proclaimed himself dictator in perpetuity. It is important to note that Caesar did not declare himself rex, or king, but instead claimed the title of dictator. Contrary to the negative connotations that the modern use of the word evokes, the Roman dictator was appointed by the Senate during times of emergency as a unilateral decision-maker who could act more quickly than the usual bureaucratic processes that the Republican government would allow. Upon bringing the Roman state out of trouble, the dictator would then resign and restore power back to the Senate. Thus, Caesar's declaration ostensibly remained within the Republican framework of power, though the huge amounts of power he had gathered for himself in practice set him up similar to a monarch. Caesar used his powers to fill the Senate with his own partisans. He also increased the number of magistrates who were elected each year, which created a large pool of experienced magistrates and allowed Caesar to reward his supporters. He used his powers to appoint many new senators, which eventually raised the Senate's membership to 900. All the appointments were of his own partisans, which robbed the senatorial aristocracy of its prestige and made the Senate increasingly subservient to him. To minimize the risk that another general might attempt to challenge him, Caesar passed a law that subjected governors to term limits. All of these changes watered down the power of the Senate, which infuriated those used to aristocratic privileges. Such anger proved to be fuel for Caesar's eventual assassination. Despite the defeat of most of his conservative enemies, however, underlying political conflicts had not been resolved. On the Ides of March, March 15, 44 BCE, Caesar was scheduled to appear at a session of the Senate, and a group of senators led by Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius Longinus conspired to assassinate him. Though some of his assassins may have had ulterior personal vendettas against Caesar, Brutus is said to have acted out of concern for the Republic in the face of what he considered to be a monarchical tyrant. Mark Antony, one of Caesar's generals and administrator of Italy during Caesar's campaigns abroad, learned such a plan existed the night before and attempted to intercept Caesar, but the plotters anticipated this and arranged to meet him outside the site of the session and detain him there. Caesar was stabbed 23 times and lay dead on the ground for some time before officials removed his body. A new series of civil wars broke out following Caesar's assassination, and the constitutional government of the Republic was never restored. Caesar's adopted heir, Octavian, later known as Augustus, rose to sole power, and the era of the Roman Empire began.